All right, we're going live in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Rise Above, where I'm doing my best to give you guys the tools, the fundamentals, and the changes that I made in my life a long time ago to not only give up the things that were destroying me, but to start producing the things in life that I truly wanted for me and my family. Now, in today's episode, I'm going to put it all out there. I'm not going to leave any stone unturned, and this is for all of y'all. So, the first thing that most people need to change, and one of the things that I made right away a priority, was changing my standards. Your standards are going to be what dictate what kind of life you actually live. Are you setting high standards and living up to them? Or are you not even mindful of the standards that you've put in front of you? And then at the end of the day, trying to figure out why your life didn't improve even a little bit that day. If you can start to create standards that the moment your feet hit the floor, start to elevate you and start to put you in a position where you have to follow through on your own promises with no one else looking. Do the things you say you're going to do. Change the habits that you know are keeping you in a bad position. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to set those standards for yourself? Now, this doesn't have to take a day, a week, a year, months. You can do this from day one, but you have to be willing to be honest with yourself and not put yourself in a spot where you're going to make unrealistic promises to yourself that you never follow through on. So standards doesn't have to mean that you're now living a fairy tale life that you think is impossible. Anything is possible. Sometimes it requires taking small incremental changes desire. That's only going to get there by making sure that you have high standards for yourself. That means not breaking the promises that you say you're going to make and follow through on. So next thing would be, what goals are you setting for yourself? Do you have goals? Or are you just going every day living off the same routine that you did the day before, and then at the end of the night trying to figure out where the time went, where your money went, and why your life isn't changing? What goals are you setting for yourself? Are you setting goals? Are you delivering on them? Are you following through? Now, when you're setting goals, it's very important that you start off by making small goals. Why are you doing this? Because you want to make sure that you can actually follow through and accomplish these goals. And by doing that, you can start building off those smaller goals and creating bigger goals that then start creating the stepping stones to a better life. But you have to start by actually following through with the goals that you're making for yourself. That might be just as small as just simply showing up. If you're saying you're going to go work out, that doesn't mean that the first day you go and work out, you have to go and kill yourself and leave yourself so sore that you never come back to it. It can be as small as just saying, I'm going to put on my workout clothes today and I'm just going to go out and go for a walk or do 5 minutes. And then you build off those 5 minutes, 5 minutes to 7 minutes to 10 minutes. And eventually you can look back and see where you started and see where you're at now and be proud of yourself. Once you do this, you start elevating your standards and you start making bigger goals for yourself. You'll start to see how all these things are connected. But you have to make sure that you're not breaking the promises to yourself that then bring you back to where you started, which is at the bottom. Now, all this has to come with the realization that you're going to have bad days. Following through on goals, raising your standards, all of these things are preparing you for a bad day. If you can have a situation that normally would have brought you down to your knees and would have resulted with you being at the bar, being in self-pity, playing the blame game, if you can change that to where now you realize, you know what, I'm going to use this bad moment to push me to further pursue my goals, to further raise my standards by not allowing these moments to hold me here, because that was the old you. The new you is going to recognize the patterns that created this bad moment, so you can not only just use it to make you stronger and make your mind stronger, but to also learn how to avoid it in the future. But you always have to be willing to give your best. Now, your best may not always look the same on a day-to-day basis. Your best one day can be 1 hour of reading, 1 hour of working on that business that you want to work on, 1 hour of working out. And the following day, your best can be 10 minutes of it. But your best has to be just to show up and to be in a state of action instead of just dwelling and thinking about doing the things you want to do, or even worse, making excuses of why you didn't follow through that day. This is why setting standards has to be your number one priority. So when that voice creeps in that starts telling you why you shouldn't do this, why you can't do it, when you start hearing the outside voices, people in your circle, people that are close to you, that start doubting you, that try to bring you down to their level, you have to understand that they don't have the same standards that you do. They're not focused on the same goals that you have to have the life that you want. They're not working their way up the way you are. So you can't expect them to understand why you're doing the things that you're doing now. Now, you have to understand, inside of us, there's a fire. As long as you're alive, there's always going to be a fire inside of you. The question is, are you fueling your fire so it burns like a massive California wildfire that'll keep you hot and keep you going? Or are you constantly doing things that are keeping you distracted, that are keeping you unmotivated, that have dwindled your fire down to a tiny little ember that's barely sparking? You have to ask yourself that question. And if you're not operating at a high level of intensity, at a high level of energy, then you need to figure out and identify what are the things that are keeping you down. What are the things that are keeping you distracted? For a lot of people, it's going to be alcohol. For other people, might be weed. But the majority, the majority of the people now are distracted by their phone. You have to realize that this is by design. This is why when they asked Steve Jobs that how much screen time he gave his kids with their iPhones when he was still alive, he clear as day said, I don't let my kids use the iPhone, because him being one of the smartest people in the world understood what that meant. That this was not only going to keep them distracted, but this was going to severely dilute and destroy the creativity, the goal, the ambition that he wants for his kids, and I'm sure that you want for yourself. So, one of the hardest things you're going to have to do is constantly go against the habits and the subconscious patterns that you've created up until this point. Now, this is going to bring us to our next topic, which is your subconscious. I have spent the better part of the last 2 years reading, listening, trying to figure out what exactly creates our subconscious to make the habits, the patterns that keep us stuck, that kept me stuck. Because I've been able to give up alcohol for almost 4 years now. I've been able to make nutrition and exercise and the relationship I have with my family a priority. However, I'm going to be very transparent here. I have a lot of subconscious negative habits when it comes and came around finances. I come from a family that didn't have a lot of money and had very negative outlook on money itself. On one hand, I had a father that knew how to burn through his money, and on the other hand, I have a mom that has a very careful but scarcity mindset, both of which have not served me now being at the age I am. However, I've come to learn a lot about the subconscious, and this is what we're going to talk about. This is where we're really going to start to figure out and dissect things that may have kept you stuck, may be keeping you stuck, and hopefully will help you change moving forward. So you have to understand that the average human mind operates 95% of the day on strictly subconscious pattern and habits. You see, when you're growing up, when you're young, when you're 4 or 5 years old, and you just start to, let's say, take a shower, and your parents start letting you get out the shower yourself, and you know you have to get a towel to dry yourself so your clothes isn't wet. Eventually, your brain stops having to use any sort of energy or muscle memory, and you just start to operate on a subconscious level that you know this is what you need to do. This is why when you get up in the morning, you don't really have to think about brushing your teeth, putting your shoes on, driving to work. A lot of these things, whether you realize it or not, you're operating on a subconscious habit because you're truthfully not thinking when you're driving, my right foot needs to step down on the gas, my left foot needs to step on the brake. These are all things that in the beginning were conscious conscious thoughts that you were having that eventually went from the 5% over to the 95%. And this is going to be the same for any negative patterns that you have going on in your life. That's why there's plenty of times where you might make the conscious thought to give up something that you no longer want to do, only to later find yourself back, whether it's drinking, whether it's scrolling, whatever it may be. But there is a way to change this. The first is awareness. If you can start to be aware when you're engaging in these activities, you can start to reverse engineer and figure out how it is you got there. Now, chances are everything that you're doing that's destroying you, that's keeping you stuck, they're all coming from an emotion. Why? Because our emotions will trigger a thought, whatever that thought may be. And any thought that comes into your mind has to result in an action, whether it's instantaneous or delayed action. Whatever it is, it all comes back to whatever your subconscious points you in the direction to. But if you can start practicing and finding a level of awareness when you find yourself in a place that you don't want to be, you can start to interrupt these patterns. Now, the next thing you have to understand is that the human brain is strictly a biological organ, one of the most important organs we have, that operates off neurons and has zero emotions, meaning even though it may be responsible for the parts of our body that feel pain, for parts of our daily experiences that create certain feelings, the truth is our brain doesn't care. Our brain doesn't know good from bad. It only knows how to produce further patterns that thinks it will keep us safe based off the actions, the habits that we're constantly feeding it. You have to look at your brain as a soil. You see, a soil, you can plant a seed and it can grow sunflowers that require little attention, minimal nutrition and water, but because they're seeds in the soil that are intended to produce sunflowers will grow. Now, the same soil can also produce orchids. Now, if you know anything about orchids, orchids are much more expensive than sunflowers. The reason this is because they require more attention, better nutrient, more time, and more care for them to become and grow into an orchid. The reason I'm telling you this is because your brain is essentially the same thing. Whatever seeds you plant into your brain, it's going to produce the fruits and the flowers of those seeds. It does not care what you feed it. It only knows how to grow it and make it proceed along. So if you're feeding it the seeds of victimhood, of giving it a story of why you can't do this, giving it seeds of excuses, then it's going to produce more excuses. It's going to keep making you think that you're a victim to your circumstance. But if you can now start to understand and say, you're now going to start feeding it seeds of prosperity, if you're now going to feed it the seeds of overcoming obstacles, then it's now going to start showing you things in your life that'll help you produce the seeds of prosperity. That's going to now show you how to overcome these challenges that you've had for several years. And the truth is, the majority of the things that it's going to present to you have been in front of you all along. There is something in our brain called the hippocampus, which is located right at the front of our skull. And the way the hippocampus works is that whatever you feed the brain to, it'll look for it in your physical world so you can recognize it and either go towards it or avoid it. So if you can stop feeding it the seeds that have kept you stuck and now start giving it seeds of abundance, you better believe that it's going to produce for you. Now, all this is great, but if you're not actually changing the habits that are going to take you there, then what good is any of this? Now, this is something that I've never shared, and this is something that I've never read, nor have I found. But I am very much convinced that this is how you get a thought, a wanting to go from just being something that is a goal, a wish, all the way to being a subconscious habit, which is what you want to do. Which is, let's take me example. I've been studying investing for a few years, and because of the mindset I've had based around scarcity when it came to finances, based off my subconscious habits, it was very hard for me a few months ago to take a little bit out of my check and put it into any sort of stocks, any sort of crypto. I always made the excuse that my family needs this money more than me experimenting. That's how I was looking at it. But I didn't realize, well, I did realize that these were still some conscious voices that were preventing me from making the change I needed to. Now, slowly, I started to invest a little money into crypto. I started putting a little money into the S&P. I started picking stocks here and there. I started listening to more podcasts. I started getting more books based around just finances in general and going into the world of it. Now, little by little, as my checks would come, I'd move some money over into investments. Has it made me rich? By no means, not yet. But I am now at the point that when I get paid, it's no longer a struggle or a second guess as to if any of that money is going to go towards investing. And so I realized that the key to subconscious change is through uncomfortableness. Sure, I spelled that wrong. Whatever positive change you want to make in your life, that you want to make stick, and you want to eventually make it something that you don't even have to struggle thinking about, is going to be uncomfortable at first. Your brain is going to fight it at all costs. It's going to give you excuses. It's going to give you reasons why not to do it. But if it's something that's a goal, it's something that you know you need to change, and you need to be willing to fight through that first part of the resistance that your brain is going to give you in order to break through from the 5% into the 95%. You have to understand that that struggle, that's your brain telling you that you're on the right path. Because if it wasn't uncomfortable, then it wouldn't be something that's new to you. It wouldn't be something that you're trying to change. Don't get distracted doing the things that you think are pushing you towards your goal that are actually just forms of procrastinating what you're actually trying to do. Don't spend years studying on a business, studying on an exercise, studying on a life that you want to have, and not actually implementing the things that you're learning. You have to be willing to just step into it. Like I said in the beginning, even if it's just a little bit in the beginning, the important thing is to show up and to at least start getting your toes in the water. Eventually, you'll be diving in and not even thinking about it. But you have to be willing to show up. You can't sit back and get what's called paralysis analysis and think that by studying something for a long time that you're actually going to be able to make the changes that you want. The change won't come unless the actual physical habits that you're doing produce that change. That's how you get to that 95%. That's when you get to go on autopilot. Now, you have to understand that as you start changing, as you start elevating, as you start doing these things, that the person you are now, if you start putting things into motion, if you actually start putting in the work, the person you're going to be in, let's say, 3 months, will be a completely bigger and better version of yourself, regardless of the struggles that you'll have. But here's what you have to understand that's even more important, that what got you here might not get you to where you want to get to in the following 3 months. So you have to be willing to continue to elevate and make bigger changes and put in more time and put in more reps to finally get to the life and get to the things that you want to have, because the person that got you here is not going to be the same person that gets you here. There's a reason why shellfish, like a lobster, will continuously ditch its shell. It's not out of vanity. It's not out of um, anything else except that the lobster outgrows its shell over and over in its lifetime. You have to be willing to accept and understand that you have to live your life this way. That if you want to really be great, to be unstoppable and be someone that people that you truly love, will begin to look up to, that you have to understand that this is going to be a lifelong journey where you're going to continuously not just be the teacher, but also be the student. You have to always be in a place of both humbleness, but also confidence without being arrogant, without being prideful. Now, like I said earlier, you're going to encounter tough days. There's going to be pain. There's always pain in anything worth having, whether that's the body you want, whether that's the home you want, whether that's just the life that you want to live on a daily basis. There's going to be painful moments because you're going to be putting yourself in situations that you more than likely avoided in the past because you knew somewhere deep down that you would have to take on take on certain situations, certain demons that maybe in the past would have brought out the weakness in you. You have to now be able to flip that. You have to now be able to use that pain. Kobe Bryant, rest in peace, was one of the best athletes ever. And the reason why, and he had no problem saying this, was that when he needed to get to that level, he he called out something that he called the Black Mamba, which was the darkness in him. He he reached deep inside himself and found all the pain, everything he went through that made him great. Michael Jordan, one of the best basketball player in the world, only got there because he was cut from his high school sophomore basketball team. Had he made his basketball team, there's a good chance we wouldn't even know who Michael Jordan was. But because of the pain of not being picked for that team, he used that to not only get himself on the team, but then propel a career that 99% of people will never have. They didn't do this through positive mindset. They didn't do this through just having um, cheerful thoughts. They used the pain for a purpose. So don't be scared when those dark days come. Know that you're in a battle for a reason. That God is going to test you to see how bad you really want to be, how bad you really want the life that you're saying you want. Because to become great is going to come with a lot of loneliness, with a lot of heartache and a lot of change. This brings me to my next point. When you change, people that have always been there for you, people that have always been around, you'll quickly find out that everybody wants everybody wants you to do good. Almost nobody wants you to do better than them. And when you get on this road to greatness, on this journey to become someone that's unstoppable, you're going to bring out a lot of insecurities in people that you never realized. You're going to start seeing the change in people's demeanor when you show up. People that normally would have been over the moon to see you walk into a room will now have a sour face because they know that you're no longer operating on a level where you're living to please everybody else. Instead, you're focusing on creating a better life for yourself, and that usually means giving up a lot of the bad habits that other people aren't willing to. You have to understand that the only way real change is going to come is when the things you want to have in life When those change from a want to a must, when you can change your vocabulary and no longer say that you want to do this, that you want to have this career, that you want to have this life, and you can change that to a must, that you must have this life, you're going to produce not only changes in your behavior, but unfortunately, you're going to change a lot of other people's behavior on how they react around you. And like I said, that's gonna produce a lot of lonely days, a lot of lonely moments. And I can tell you that if you stay on this journey, those lonely moments are gonna be the ones that are gonna define you in the end, because those are gonna ones that are gonna show you who you truly were meant to be and what you're capable of. So don't let the negative voices, don't let the negative stares, don't let people talking behind your back slow you down or stop you or have you give up on your dreams, because your standards are now set so high that they can't see you. There's a reason that eagles don't fly with pigeons. They fly miles above them. So understand that you don't have to be great in order to have this life that you want, but you do have to start. And if you can start, eventually you can lead your way to greatness day by day, just a little bit better every day. All right. Now we're going to end it on this. I'm going to leave you with 4 keys to success. Now, I started off by talking about standards. The best way I can define that for you is by making the right choices every day. Your day is going to be full of choices that you make, whether you realize it or not. And when you start to live a life that you want to be proud of, you're going to understand that there's going to be choices that you're now going to have to make the opposite that you were usually accustomed to. That can mean waking up and deciding to go work out instead of deciding to just stay in bed. That can mean deciding to read 30 minutes on whatever it is you want to be great at, as opposed to doing something else that's going to waste your time for 30 minutes. That can be as small as deciding, as when you're at work and you hear somebody gossiping about your coworkers, and instead of chiming in so you can just be part of the group, deciding to walk away and no longer be that person. So you have to be very aware and conscious that your days, your life is made up of small choices every day. And you have to make sure that you're willing to make the right one over and over and over again. Hard work. Again, I don't know what it is that you want for yourself, but you have to be willing to do the work regardless of how hard it may be. It may be on a physical level, it may be on a mental level, it may even be on a spiritual level. You may have, up until this point, had a life that you thought maybe wasn't fair, the things you went through. So now living a life where you now have to have faith that when things aren't working out, that you're still on the right path, all those things are going to play into what kind of life you design for yourself. So hard work is number 2. Number 3, and this is something that a lot of people will spend their whole life working on, and I can say I'm one of those people, which is organization. Now I'm going to put number 4 there because they're both going to tie in together, which is perfectionism. And by perfectionism means double checking your work. Gary Vee has a saying that I like where he says he'll measure 5 times and cut once, meaning before you make any sort of choice that you can't go back on, you better make sure that you're doing your due diligence, that you're making the right measurements, the right calculations, that you don't then realize that you made a decision too hasty. Now, something that I can recommend that will help with both of these, and that has definitely helped me with the organization section of it, which is to minimize the details in your life. Get rid of the clutter. Get rid of the things that you truthfully know aren't going to serve you and are just standing in the way and distracting you from having an organized life, from being able to reach the closest level of perfection that you can when it comes to the work that you're trying to create. So I'm going to wrap that up for today. Now, as always, there is a link on our channel to our ebook, Rise Above. It's a simple, easy, quick read where we we have a guideline for the things that I used to change my life that allowed me to not only free myself from addiction to alcohol, but also to now have an energy and to have a sense of spirituality that every day I'm able to hold on to, even on my worst days, that I'm able to use as an anchor so I don't stray too far away from the things that I'm trying to build. I recommend anybody that's on that same path, check it out. If this live served you, I just ask that you smash that like button, subscribe to our channel. We hope to see you guys again soon. Take care, y'all.